don't tag it at Chairman NHRC, you can tag it at hashtag EVIC. EVIC means Election Violence Incident Center. If you tagged it with any of those three, whether it's a handle or the hashtags, we'll be able to track it. And if we track it, we're working with the Federal Bureau of Intelligence and Investigation at the Criminal Investigation Department in Abuja, headquarters, to make sure that we find out who these people are and try and make sure there's some accountability.
You know, some time ago, I think it was last year, there were some lawyers in Lagos who came together, particularly about social media. They thought that we needed to put together some laws to check some of these. Has anything changed for you? I mean, many wonder, what laws will you be relying on if you were to prosecute people based on comments they make on social media?
These are not comments, sorry. Calling somebody from a part of the country a pig isn't a comment. It is hate. Now, and that's what people have got to understand. Now, dismissing an entire region in the country with a spiteful epithet that could trigger mass killing is not a comment. And when that happens, it's responsible for government, as to say, I'm saying that government does have a responsibility to make sure that people who predispose us to mass slaughter are brought to account. And I will not sit down and encourage people by saying, oh, you know what, hate speech is common. It's not. Hate speech is hate speech. And I do think it is important that we address it as such. Do we have laws? Yes, we have laws. The problem is not whether or not we have laws. From the Electoral Act to our basic criminal codes and penal codes, there are laws. The question is, are we willing to make these laws count for something? Or do we want to give power to people because they support our party, they go to the same church with us, they worship in the same mosque, or we went to the same secondary school, or indeed they come from the same ethnic group as us? If we're going to build a country, we've got to apply rules to everybody, irrespective of where they come from.
You know, I mean, many will also readily say that, well, yes, in spite of all of this, some of them think that we may be papering over cracks or scratching the surface if we do not address the structural problems that exist. I mean, Mr. Lardner highlighted some sort of culture and system. Do you think that is also tenable for us addressing, maybe say, this winner-takes-all mindset in politics?
I mean, I've been on record as saying that we've got to address the winner-takes-all syndrome. When a person gets a sizable number of votes, when a person is represented in parliament, or when a party is represented in parliament, I think we've got to make the effort to bring them into the tables of power. And I think one underside of the presidential system is that it encourages the winner-takes-all syndrome. But I do think also that those who will power can be inclusive in the way they do it, and can do it with a sense and understanding that there's a big, diverse country, and everybody needs to have a stake at the table. That said, I think I use the word, I'm not very comfortable using the word culture to describe our problem. Because when we describe something as cultural, it's the epithet for surrender. There is nothing wrong with Nigeria that decent leadership cannot fix. We've had difficulties with leadership for a while, since independence, I'd like to say, or at least since the generation after the independence generation. I also do think we've had problems with followership. And as long as we like to see government only in terms of where people come from, rather than where we all can go together and what we can achieve together, we'll continue to have these problems in which people want to exclude other people rather than build the most inclusive country possible that we can.
All right, let me get to Mr. Lardner. Let's look at one aspect that Prof talked about now, followership. I mean, several times there's always this tendency for us to gloss over that part. But they have a responsibility, don't they?
No, without question. It's leadership followership itself. And I think if you phrase it and expand the definition of followership and impose the rights and responsibility of citizenship, it even gives you a much broader sense of what is expected of you as a citizen, not necessarily as a follower of a political party or an individual, right? As a citizen of this great country, you expect to have rights. but they also have attendant responsibilities. So those are some deep civic lessons that have to be learned. And you cannot impose a sense of citizenship top down. Nigerians have to understand that as they expect from the state and their leaders, they also have an abiding responsibility to make sure that the system works for the Commonwealth, right? So it's a much larger expansion of just followership, leadership itself, right? I mean, there's so many things you want to unpack and you want to unbundle. The metaphor I use in describing the Nigerian state is one of a computer, right? If you imagine that Nigeria is a computer, there's nothing wrong with the hardware. It's a wonderful computer, right? The challenge we're having is the operating system that drives that computer. And the people who operate that operating system, that is where the problem is. He said something I thought was, important, that there's nothing about Nigeria's superstructure that that good leadership cannot fix over time. We're ready for that kind of good leadership, right? Yeah. But the challenges are that this zero-sum thing is, it's a poverty mentality. When you have a pervasive sense of scarcity.
Okay. Well, we need to take a quick break, but don't worry. We'll just hold your thoughts if you can. We'll be back and continue this in a moment. Please join us again.